Hey, you're online with our show Marginal Absurdity, where we talk politics, current events, science, theory, and just about whatever we find interesting. So sit back and stay tuned, if you don't mind. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Marginal Absurdity. We're here with your favorite Chris.
Howdy.
Yeah, and Ryan, and we got a special guest, which is our rapper friend in the background in the other audio room. So you might be hearing him coming in and out. But
you might be hearing him rise to stardom.
Yeah, we were talking. We were talking earlier about maybe just putting this mic up to the wall and recording some of his stuff, and if he became famous, we'd own rights to one of his songs. I don't know.
You know, if he's using the same mic as us, though, then he's probably hearing our evil, devious plan to take credit for his music.
Well, he could have credit for this episode too if he played his cards.
I know, it's an endless cycle. We're just in here recording all the time at the same time.
I know. Maybe he's just like rapping nonsense just to get a recording of this podcast.
He could be a spy. He could be spying on us
exactly.
right now.
Well, there's a hole in the wall. So.
You know, our first episode was about Donald Trump,
right?
And you know, maybe that administration.
Yeah, and then
they're one of the 20 views.
Right.
And they want info, and so they got this rapper.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Exactly. Donald Trump, aliens, conspiracy.
We could be spying on him. We would not.
I mean,
know.
I'm not spying on him. Are you?
No.
You want to confess?
There's no way for me to know 100% that you know nothing about this. Okay, that's all I'm saying. You could be a spy for all I know.
Well, yeah, but I could say the same about you, and you could be a robot or an alien.
You could take this a little further.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to go further.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but so we were thinking, and I think Chris has a nice little question for us today, and we're gonna start off with that. So.
Yeah, I have a question, and it could be construed as very controversial.
Okay.
In both the realm of religion and politics.
Okay.
But I don't want it to be controversial. I just want it to be interesting.
Okay. So no controversy, just kind of.
We're just gonna make a few assumptions.
Okay. And are we gonna debate this kind of, or are we gonna like?
I'm gonna see how you feel.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
All right. So here's the question.
Yeah.
Assuming that Christianity is real.
Okay.
By Christianity, I mean like the Bible is true, infallible. It's all real. Like God's real as it's described in the Bible.
Right. This is the assumption, right?
This is the assumption.
Okay,
assuming that's all true.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Does God have an opinion about guns?
About guns?
Yeah, because guns happened way after the Bible was written.
Yeah.
So, does God have an opinion about guns? Because we wouldn't know.
Right.
Assuming it's true, and assuming like we're in the framework.
Right.
Does he have an opinion about guns?
I mean, he could. But I'm more like, I think because of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not, kill another individual. I don't know the exact wording, but you're not supposed to murder, right? In Christianity.
But he didn't say anything about bow and arrow.
Yeah,
and that was around.
But murder
but you
murdering
could murder
another
with a bow
man.
And arrow.
What?
You could murder with a bow and arrow. He also didn't
but
say
murder
anything.
in general is bad, so you can't really. So guns, bow and arrow, sword,
God,
whatever.
My question is: would God be pro or against
pro
the
NRA?
Second Amendment? Is he pro NRA?
Yeah. Come on, NRA.
Well, yeah.
Rise up to power. Lobby
I guess
those
I kind of
Congress.
answered my own question though.
Yeah.
All he says is don't kill. He didn't say anything about no bow and arrow.
Yeah.
No swords.
Right.
So I don't know. That's actually.
I mean, it is one of the commandments, I guess. So.
Okay. Well, does God have an opinion on GMOs?
On GMOs?
Because you could argue, he made the organisms.
Yeah.
And then, there's two layers.
So are you playing God by kind of like switching the genes or something like that?
Is he jealous? Is he mad about that?
Jealous?
Is he jealous? Seriously.
What are you damn humans doing to my animals?
Yeah, I know. So here's the thing, though. Okay, so two things happen. Mm-hmm. We took the animals that God made, and then we bred them, domesticated them, and then we also made GMOs like a few thousand years later. So like, is he pissed about this?
Well, it could also so I've watched some genetic modification movies, especially. Have you seen Food Inc. or anything like that?
Yeah,
Food Inc.
I love Food Inc.
What's that one? Forks Over Knives or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also some videos Bill Nye does on GMOs because he's actually pro-GMO. He likes the GMO idea.
Yeah.
And there was one that just came out on Netflix that was about, or maybe I watched it on YouTube, but it was about how we select certain crops to grow rather than other ones. Yeah. So why potatoes came up instead of like, ginseng or something like that or whatever. Even though ginseng did kind of come up, but it's more of a wild plant. So like in that sense, even back then when Jesus was around, they were still kind of genetically modifying food to be grown rather than other food. Yeah. So I mean.
But did he have an opinion?
Did he have an opinion about it?
Is that a sin? I mean, it's not listed as one.
Right.
But I guess what I'm really asking is, what's his opinion of this?
Right. Well, does he have any opinions at all, really?
Okay. I want to take this out of Christianity. Does the abstract idea of a God, a God that created the world, does he have an opinion on our modifying it? Like,
well, I guess that depends on which religion you're affiliated with. You have to be affiliated with some to follow either that God's opinion or a philosophy. With Buddha, Confucius, Jesus.
Well, if you created a little simulation or you created your own little universe, would you be mad or like proud or neutral if your creations eventually like started modifying the environment that you made? Like,
oh, okay. So like, if the world started working on itself rather than I'm like, this is what it is.
Yeah. How do you think you feel?
I don't know. Like, it depends how well it would turn out. Like, I'm kind of a humanist in that I'm like, as long as everything, nobody's dying terrible deaths. The bubonic plague's not really going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some poverty, this and that, but not everybody can be shining stars, but like, as long as the world is not like coming up to where it wants to destroy the rest of the universe, I don't know. And
then come fight you?
Yeah. Well, I'm God. I made them, so I mean, technically I would destroy them if I was God. Yeah. Right? I would that assumption would be that I would have the power to do that, I think, right? Yeah.
Well, I have no idea. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there is a way to really know the nature of a God.
I know.
It's really mysterious.
Exactly. Have you ever played, I mean, this is related, but you played Roller Coaster Tycoon or like SimCity?
Yeah. Zoo Tycoon.
Yeah, Zoo Tycoon, my favorite. Yeah. I know, where you got to like build I'd imagine it'd be almost like that. And there would, and when I was playing that with my brother, there would always be these moments where, there'd be some customer that's pissed off, and you're like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to build a goddamn like fence and put him in it, and he's just going to be like, God, I hate this place.
So you made him a zoo animal.
Exactly, yeah, in a sense. But nobody could see him. He was just kind of in his own isolated box.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess that's another thing, if you made a world as a god, would there be any punishment? Would you allow there to be any punishment?
Would I personally?
Or well, okay, yeah. Would you? Like, so same question. You're God here. You're building one world kind of thing. All right, and you set the rules and this and that. Would you let things modify, right? So same question you would ask me just a minute ago. But also, on top of that, if you wouldn't let them modify, if you would, like, what would the punishment be? Would there be any punishment? What would the punishment be?
I feel like this really gets into the nature of, like, the physical rules. Like, if I made physical rules that prevented them from modifying, then, like, could, you know what I mean? Like, could they modify?
Right.
And then if they couldn't, then, like, if I set the rules to make it, they cannot modify their environment, then they couldn't modify their environment, so I would never need to punish them for it. Like, that's the thing, too, then.
But would you have opinions about certain things they did? Maybe not modifying anything.
I don't think...
So no GMOs or anything like that, but like you said about guns, like you had an opinion about guns or something like that, or anything like that.
I think
any opinion about any type of use on anything else or any type of relationship between you working on like an engine or something like that, is that okay with God or what, Yeah. Like, so in that sense,
I think if it were me personally, I'd be very interested and fascinated. Like, I wouldn't be mad at anything. I would think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
But on that note, is there an assumption that you already know what's kind of gonna happen? But you already know like how to do all that and how that works because you're God.
Well, I guess it depends on whatever created me, whatever rules it set. Do I know everything about the thing that I created?
Yeah. Well, if you're creating something, and if you're God, I mean, nobody created you, right? Like,
and that's where did you come from?
Well, I don't know. You're God. You're everything, right?
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Imagine multi-layer gods. Like, assume that for a god to exist, another god had to create it.
Okay.
Now, there's...
So did that other god, like, die? Or, like, is he just, like, still, like, overwatching him? Like,
well, see, that's the thing.
Like a 4-star general, like, watching his little men or something.
So if you have a god that created its own little universe, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Does that little universe abide by the rules designated by the god above that one? You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. So like, not by the god that made him, but like the
If
original.
I create a universe and then that universe ends up creating a universe, is that universe, that last made universe, does it
abide by the rules of the same universe?
Yeah. Does it abide by the rules that I set?
Yeah. The universe beforehand or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd imagine so. If it like evolved to another universe, it would have to go off some guidelines too. You know.
Yeah.
Like logically, I would imagine. But, you know, maybe not. If it's another universe, wouldn't have a different god then, I guess. There'd have to be another god, maybe.
Well, I have no idea. Well, assume the Christian God.
Okay.
Made our universe.
All right.
There could be other universes made by other gods, and like Christian gods like hanging back and going, "Hey Zeus, check this out."
Yeah. Look at what my universe is doing.
Like, look at what I did.
Yeah.
And it's just like, look at this.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, especially if multiverse theory is like true and there's multiple universes.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting if there's like one god designated to each universe. But then how many gods are there, you know? It's almost infinite.
Well, it'd be infinite.
But, yeah.
And then they'd all have creators, and then they'd all have creators. And then really it's just like, where does this all...
Right.
How does this even happen?
Right. Also, why... I don't know. And this is the thing about... So we're kind of getting into... Now we're getting into my opinion about religion and gods here. But like...
no.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to go too deep into this. But like, what gives us the right to say... God has any human qualities or any like bias towards humans or organisms or anything like that? You know, God could be the Big Bang, you know, or like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of speculating here and going off on on different theories and different, you know, religions or whatever. But nonetheless, like, I'm curious about that, and that's what I'm asking you. Like, what gives people the right to assume God has human-like, or to personify God, I guess is the question.
I think it's either easier to understand, or it's just what people prefer.
Yeah.
People prefer seeing someone, like people prefer watching people on TV maybe that have similar lifestyles or beliefs as them.
Right.
Or it's whatever they aspire to. Because I think probably people project whatever they want to be or what they think they are on God.
Right.
And so, but I don't know. I really don't. I don't know.
Me neither. But through almost all religions, there's always been that assumption that God has some type of bias towards humans and animals or towards the world.
Yeah.
Rather than other. Why? And I guess that's also because of our ignorance towards the universe and how much we don't know. And,
yeah.
You know, we're kind of just in our own little world, literally. So.
The thing I like to think about or wonder is if there is a God. Yeah. Like just a singular God that made the world.
Right, assuming that. Yeah.
Like it might not even know that we exist in the first place. Like,
right, yeah.
It goes off that. Like, I don't know why everyone assumes that they're like keyed in.
Yeah.
Like, say, yeah, if God's something like the Big Bang, and it's even capable of knowing something at all. If, like, we don't know. Humans know things, but we don't know if God knows things.
Yeah.
Like, God might not even know that we exist.
Right.
And one day he might go, "Oh shit, look."
Yeah. Look what I did.
Look, I did this.
Yeah.
And he might be looking around right now, just going through the universe, like, not here, not here, not here.
No life.
Like, oh my me.
Yeah.
Look.
But this also that you're saying right now, it's another personification of God.
I know.
Like, he's looking through the like a human searching for like a bug in a grass or something like that, you know? Wouldn't we assume that God would know because he knows everything, or because he knows? And that's the thing, we don't know anything about God.
We have no idea anything about God.
Yeah.
That's why it's faith. That's why it's called you go on faith.
Right. And I think there's also like I've been reading somewhere that there's a part of our brain that has like function to realize that there is a higher power or something like that. Like that's for some reason that might be a part of the human psyche, or that's already like innately built into our brains or something like that. That there is a concept of there is some God kind of thing, and that's kind of more towards the argument of there is a God, kind of whatever. But I don't know, you know.
What if humans evolved like a bias to believe in a higher power to keep them from going insane, not being able to explain it all?
Yeah, but are atheists insane?
Well, they're not insane, but
that would I guess that would kind of assume that atheists are insane if there is. But I know what you're saying. That's very well could be true, but
like maybe it was easier. I mean, you could really make a case for this that earlier humans that were concerned about where everything came from. They were smart enough to figure out like that things have origins typically. They're like wondering about their own, and they're spending all their time thinking about it. When really the ones who aren't thinking about it are like, higher power. Like they're the ones like higher power. They're satisfied. They're not worried about it. They're gonna move on with their lives.
Right.
But that doesn't really explain like humans make art and we don't have to. Like that's kind of a waste of time. Like if you're thinking about like just surviving, like humans occupy themselves making art and like just having fun, and like they get bored. So I don't really think that's a good argument.
Yeah.
Like it's just humanity. I don't know.
I know humanity is.
People like we're saying God's mysterious and unknowable, but really humanity is also mysterious and.
Yeah, I know. Especially like emotions and like human psyche, sociology, psychology, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It is knowable to an extent, but still a lot of that is very very open-ended. And I guess on that note we'll get into that maybe on the next segment. So we're talking relationships now. Human psychology, sociology, relationships. So we were originally thinking about talking about relationships. So what was I guess weighing on you heavy there? You know, what did you want to talk about? Because we got obviously romantic relationships, you know, boyfriend and girlfriend that we were.
Yeah. And
then, you know, family, and then technology, and then whatever, anything you use you have a relationship with. But nonetheless, what were your kind of ideas here?
Well, yeah,
it's your brain.
It's along those lines. Like people say, my relationship is complicated, or they say relationships are complicated.
Exactly.
But what they don't mean is that like they seriously, for an individual human, like relationships are complicated because you have so many types of relationships.
Oh yeah.
You have probably hundreds. Like it's hard to just say, what are my top 100 relationships?
Right.
But you do have hundreds of relationships.
Exactly.
And you could
throughout your whole life, and some of those, you I think you constantly have to keep starting relationships with people all the time, and then they keep dying or like disappearing out of the woodwork, kind of,
Yeah, and it's strange.
Yeah.
To have I'm gonna say intimate, but like I mean it very generally. Like you have an intimate relationship, like a well-established. It's not like you high-five some random guy in the street.
Right.
Like you have an ongoing like tie to a person.
Yeah.
It's amazing that like you have hundreds of them and they die and arise and like die and
Right.
and all the time.
Right.
Like,
and it's almost like I like that kind of social contract that there is between a person, whether it's like friendship or romantic. There's always that, hey, I've seen your face before. You better come over here and shake my hand, kind of, or like, you better start talking to me. Like, there's that like obligation. You know?
And it really doesn't take a lot. Like, all you have to do is like meet someone once, and then you forever, every time you see them, you have to say hello,
right?
Or give them the head nod.
What's up? Yeah. You doing all right? You always have to take care a little bit of that.
I know.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I don't know. I don't know why you have to say hello. I mean, like I've met people like freshman year, and then 3 years later I gotta like say hello. Yeah. Still, like I see them, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta acknowledge that I met you.
Yeah.
Which might say something about how we value relationships, even like minimal. Like if it's so important that you have to say hello every time you see them, just because you shook hands one day.
Right.
I don't know.
Me neither. Yeah. I don't get it, man. Like, especially because there's that moment you shared together, right? When you first meet them, there's that moment, and like ever since that moment, you kind of just continue on. Like there's always gonna be like, hey, met you at that cafe that one day.
Yeah.
And so after that point in time, there's that obligation.
Yeah. Even though we are saying that relationships die.
Yeah, but I guess do relationships ever die? Well, even with like ex romance partners or like family members that have passed away, you still have that remembrance. Or if you see that ex partner or ex friend or whatever walking around, there's still those moments, still those memories.
Well, it's interesting, but for some people, the relationship totally changes status. Like, and I don't mean like you go from girlfriend to ex-girlfriend, but I mean like you go from girlfriend to friend. Like, it can just change. Yeah. And it's like you had a totally different dynamic, and now you're friend. Right. I think the bare minimum is you're always going to have to say hello. Yeah. At least from...
If you're a nice person, at least.
Yeah.
So you know.
And at least from like what I know about living my whole life in the United States, like that's just the rule. I don't know how it is other places. Yeah. Maybe in Russia, they just like never... Yeah. It's like, I'm done with you. I shook your hand. Like, I don't know.
But there's still always going to be, no matter where you go, there's still always going to be that remembrance or that time where you're like, there was that time with that person,
It seems almost dog-like or like animal-like. It's like, ooh, I met you. I met you.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
You waggle your hand. And,
yeah, but nonetheless, it's everywhere. And that's another thing about humans, is that you can't forget anything that you can, like, off the top of your head you can forget things, but like certain like recognition of faces or like words or sounds or something like that. Yeah. You can't just like, when that comes up again, when that comes back into your fast thinking mind.
Brain.
Yeah. When it registers, you're like, hey, I remember that from that place, or I know where that was from, or I've heard that before, or I've seen that person before, You can't just extrapolate that memory. Like, have you ever seen that Harry Potter Deathly Hallows or movie where they get, I think it's what's his name, the leader of the whole of Hogwarts, Dumbledore, yeah. He gets that wand and he like puts it up against his head and it's like swirling or whatever, and he's kind of taking out that memory and putting it into that water,
and then they just bob for apples.
Yeah, where's that memory at now? But yeah, humans can't do that. You're always going to recognize certain things that you can't just turn off. Yeah. From your subconscious, and that's another interesting thing I think about relationships and about people and about the human psyche. You just can't get rid of it.
Well, now that I think about it, it seems like that would be highly important for a human being, because we're really social and we live in like complex societies. Yeah. So I guess it's like kind of necessary that you don't forget people. Yeah. And it's necessary that, like, if you met someone in a peaceful setting, that you, like, forever remember that you met in a peaceful setting. Right. Because you don't know who's going to be, like, your competitor. Right. You don't know who's from the opposite tribe. Like, yeah. So maybe that's good. Like, it's good that we always say hello, even though it's awkward sometimes.
Right, yeah. Silly. Yeah. I agree. And I've been reading, I showed you this book. I've been reading the Thinking Fast and Slow kind of thing or whatever. And, there's this part where especially in the brain when it tries to memorize certain things. It in any given moment or experience, it always ties, or it tends. There's this theory that it tends to tie the feeling of that experience with that memory. Mm-hmm. So when you meet somebody in a coffee shop and you smell coffee or whatever like that, you kind of tie like warm to that person if you're meeting somebody in the coffee shop. And I guess that's another thing about romance. How did you meet, kind of, and that kind of also helps you start that relationship with how you met. Like, did you meet in a coffee shop, or did you meet like in the rain with that kind of warm feeling, cozied up under an umbrella, kind of whatever, or did you meet in like a construction zone where like you're jackhammering away, and then this woman just taps you on or this man taps you on the shoulder, and you're,
it's like, nice jackhammering.
Does that give the relationship like the idea that, oh, we got to work on this? Like if you're jackhammering away, like if it first starts off like that, that experience, that feeling, like, are you forever like gonna give that biased feeling to how it just started then to the rest of the relationship? Wow, that's an idea. I think
that's what I've always
extrapolate.
Yeah. I've always kind of thought that, like, people talk about like personalities and how they go together.
Yeah.
But like in a relationship, I feel like it matters a whole lot. Like, maybe not more, but like equivalently, like the situations that both people were in, like during the relationship. Like, the situations matter, and like the memories matter.
Yeah.
Like two people who didn't share like certain key events might not be together, even.
Right. They might not be compatible or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like your compatibility might be based on like what situations you endured together.
Right.
Which is weird.
Yeah, I know.
It almost makes like, especially if two people are together, it would almost make like these certain moments sacred, or like it's just like it's like super meaningful. Like it means more than like.
We'll give an example. We'll elaborate on that. What do you mean? Like what kind of situation? You know what I mean? Where they both kind of find, it means that situation means more to both of them than it would with one person and another individual. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, just give an example of like that. So when you mean like, so we're talking about two people that are cut from like the same fabric.
Yeah.
So like, do you mean like, well, one person or both of them got like beat by their parents or something like that. So, so say somebody gets in a car accident, or one in the couple gets like beat up by a boss or something like that. Like, does that other relationship partner recognize that more, or is that what you're trying to say? Like,
I'm saying that when those two people share an experience, like they are literally next to each other when they share the experience. Yeah. Not that they have shared, like they have similar experiences.
Yeah, like background situations that happen.
But I mean, like people, like if these two people, maybe they met in a museum or something.
Okay, yeah.
And then they ended up they kept talking, like the chemistry was good, and they ended up going through a museum.
Yeah.
Like, that might be like the cornerstone of the relationship, rather than like the fact that they were able to talk. Like they might have been able to have the same conversation or the same type of conversations and have the same dynamic.
Yeah.
But maybe they met and they just met because of work, or like,
right.
And it wasn't in the museum. Like, it's just something about the moment and something about the environment that like made it happen. Like, I can't give a.
So are you saying like it's almost like what's that word, like serendipity or something like that, where meeting at a certain place at a certain time, like a destiny kind of thing. Like if like they only would have gotten in a relationship if they met at this museum rather than at the Lincoln Memorial or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying something along the lines of like it's just, it gives them an extra feeling of romance, maybe, or like the environment helped them feel like they were a couple more than,
so like the environment was more like a better influence, like the environment influenced them rather than that specific environment influenced, rather than like like on a boat or something like that, or whatever another situation.
What I'm also saying too is that like once they leave that situation, it's the way they remember it too. Like they're like, oh, we like two scenarios. They both have the same conversation, but in one scenario they just ran into each other at a museum and they ended up walking through the thing together, and they had the conversation versus like they just worked together and had the conversation.
Yeah.
Like when they go back to remember that, like
yeah,
it matters that they met in a museum. Like the conditions matter that they met in a museum. Like that's maybe more cute to them, or like it means more than just, oh well, we had this conversation while at work because we worked together. And like they're both coincidental, but I feel like.
So in your opinion, let me ask you this: in any given relationship, not a relationship you're in, or just in general, in the general case, anybody in a relationship, is it more meaningful that they meet by coincidence rather than by convention?
I don't think it matters.
You don't think so? Because I think that it kind of sounds like you're saying that, you know, it's more meaningful to them that they met coincidentally, like the movies, like the dramas where it's like, oh, I happened to get some coffee at a coffee shop, but I dropped my wallet, so I had to go back and get it, and this man found it by the stoplight next to the Wall Street sign, and you know, like is that more special than convention? Like, oh, me and Bill been working for IBM for 20 years, and we just happened to, you know, he sat down there at the cubicle down next to the bathroom, and I sat up here next to the boss's office, and you know, we just happened like we got to talking one day, and you know, and then got married or something.
Well, I mean, those situations are kind of similar. Like you could argue that.
I guess so, but
I don't think that functionally it matters which one happened, but like if you want to like get an extra feeling out of it, maybe it's the coincidental like situation, like you weren't expecting it, it'd be hard to know that was going to happen. Like those are the moments that maybe add to it, and it doesn't make it like a better relationship, but I think it's just like, I think it's when it feels meant to be, like the situations maybe that feel, it's almost supernatural. Like I think people get a supernatural feeling when they just meet this person by chance. And like I think that adds, but it doesn't detract from people that didn't meet that way. I don't know. It's weird, and like I don't know. Like this is not hard science.
Right, yeah. Like, so on top of that, so moving on a little bit, so is it do you think relationships kind of are better off in terms of how they start, in terms of situation, or in terms of how they are compatible in terms of their personality and people? I mean, obviously the answer, like in the long run, is like personality. When you get to know somebody, if you like the same things, you know. Well, okay, all right. Well, so argue this on me. What are your thoughts here?
Well, yeah, like earlier we were saying like they're the same personality, or they were like still compatible, but what would actually strengthen what I'm trying to say is that two people that wouldn't have gotten together before might get together and stay together based on their situation, because the situation is so much more important,
regardless of the personality.
And now that I'm thinking about it, that's actually the argument I should have been making, and the thing I should have been saying. I don't know why I got into the other thing.
No. Yeah, we tend to get off on tangents.
But I think that the situation might actually make people get together that otherwise wouldn't, and that makes it feel even more magical, because they feel like it's, one, coincidental, and two, that event like bypassed their personalities, and now they're together because they share that situation and they both like find meaning in it,
and it makes it, I think it also makes it like that much more special, as we're just to continue on that thought, you know, like that's their moment, only theirs, that person between them two, you know, and nobody else will have that moment ever, like and I think that's also adding to our point that it makes it more special when it's by coincidence, in a certain moment, in a certain place, rather than conventional, like in an office. Like, you know, you're gonna meet Wilma down the line, and when if you and that Wilma get married, you know, the story's gonna be like, oh yeah, she was down 4 cubicles, we just got married, you know.
You want the weird,
it was
situation.
Destined to happen either way, but it's more special. And I guess this is why dramas kind of harp on this too, you know, meeting by coincidence or by some odds, you know. It just makes that love and that bond more close.
Well, have you seen The Office?
Oh, of course.
Well,
who hasn't seen The Office?
I think a lot of people would say that the Jim and Pam relationship, like that's really magical and cutesy, and that's what they want, and that's very conventional. Like, and it if it were all real,
Well,
I'd say that's a very, very special thing. Like, they met together. And
so here's another little argument for you. Is that conventional? Because Jim could have applied to Dunder Mifflin down the road instead of Dunder Mifflin, but he just happened to apply Dunder Mifflin, and then Pam could have been a what's the word I'm looking for? Could have been a secretary or what, I don't remember what job. Yeah. But she could have been a secretary at like Apple or or anywhere else. But she just happened to be like, oh, Dunder Mifflin, I'll just throw an application, and then they meet there.
Well, see, that destroys the whole thing we're talking about earlier versus conventional versus coincidental.
Right.
Actually, it's all coincidental because no one, like when you were born, they didn't like say, okay, Wilma and Jonathan are gonna be. They didn't stamp, okay, they're going to work at these places. We're going to make sure they walk past each other. I don't know.
So now we're getting more specific to this argument. So how much coincidentalness is needed to make it more special? And like, what makes it more special? Like, does it need to be more special?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's just all subjective. It's
I guess so. Yeah. It depends on the person.
It really depends on the couple, I'd say.
Yeah.
The couple decide what make it magical or not.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of couples don't even care. They don't talk about it. But
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, man. Like, but that's a very interesting concept for sure about coincidence and about, I guess, like bonding in terms of that situation,
Yeah.
I got one last little question to wrap up this episode, and it's about sex. About sex and relationships. So, I watch a little too much TV, right? And have you seen House of Cards?
I've seen the first 5 minutes of House of Cards.
Do you you didn't watch the rest of it?
No.
Just on the side. You didn't watch the rest of it?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Well, you need to. It's great. But in this episode of House of Cards, one episode, I think it's like episode 10 or whatever, Kevin Spacey's talking about he's having sex with this reporter, and I don't mean to spoil it for you, but anyway, he's having sex. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Yeah. Sorry about this if you haven't watched House of Cards yet, but so he's having sex with this reporter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after it's the next day or whatever, and they're contemplating the exchange of sex, what it means. And Kevin Spacey says, well, sex isn't about love or about like trust or something like that. It's about power. Do you think sex is about power?
Probably for some people.
Yeah.
But I don't think for most people, like the vast majority of like healthy people, it's not sex is not about power.
Yeah. Like but I'm talking about power not in the sense of like I'm powering over you, like I have dominance or whatever, but like an exchange of power, like kind of like, so in the moment, technically, so there's like there's a giving up of power and like a trust and like a letting in to be in that intimate moment, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of that power, like so in that sense, like, because there's both a give and take of power there.
Mm-hmm.
So is sex about power?
Well, I'd ask you this. Monkeys have sex. Is it about power? Dolphins have sex. Is it about power?
Well, yeah, okay, but I'm talking... Well, it's intimate for humans.
Yeah.
And probably dolphins as well. I've heard it's pleasurable for dolphins, bunnies. I don't know. There's like 4 or 5 organisms that find it pleasurable. But nonetheless, there's... And in human psychology, there's like an influx and a deflux of endorphins given off in sex. Your pupils dilate, all that, everything. Yeah. Your body, like... blood pressure rises, you lose a few calories. But nonetheless, emotionally, on an emotional level, between humans, is it about power or control or something like that, Obviously, it's like, depending on who you're with, what kind of relationship it is, there's going to be, I would assume you'd be in love with somebody to want to have sex with them or whatever, and you would trust them enough, but like in that like mindset, emotionally, is it about the giving and taking of like control or about power over yourself or another individual of a sharingness? I don't know.
I think it's a way that you can look at it. I don't know if it's like there's a definitive way you could say, oh yeah, it's about the interplay of power between two individuals.
Yeah.
But I guess what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying, is that someone has to like trust and they have to give up a little bit of like control. Well, they're in control.
Yeah.
But they're like kind of saying, come on in, or
yeah. Like, this is okay with me.
Let me in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
You think? Yeah, I don't know. I was watching that the other day, and so I thought, well, maybe it is a little bit about.
So you think it is? I'm guessing you do.
I don't think sex is all about power, but I think it's definitely a player in that type of situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's a whole lot of different things to sex. More maybe we'll talk about later. Who knows? But with that, I guess we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you guys for checking in and listening to our little special. We hope you enjoyed it. Chris, do you have any last words to say or anything?
If you enjoyed it, express that. But if you don't want to, that's fine too.
Yeah, exactly.
And stay tuned because we're going to produce more content.
Exactly. We love producing content for you guys. If you guys have any questions or any topics you want us to talk about, please email us at marginalabsurdity@gmail.com.
Or leave it in the comments.
Or leave it in the comments,
Whatever you want.
And like our videos. We love making it for you guys. And I guess we'll see you in the next one.
Adios.